So in the seventh chapter, so he's explaining how all these different energies come from him. And if we compare these structure of the chapter 7 and 9, it's very, very similar. So if you take the verses until 7 of the chapters 7 and verses until chapter 7 of or chapter 9 verses until 10, they are having a similar concept. It's just that Krishna emphasizes a different perspective. Like in the beginning he says like what is the importance of this chapter, and he again explains what is the attitude that is required for understanding this knowledge. And also from verses 4 to 10 of chapter 9, he explains the inconceivable nature of how the energies are one with him and also different from him. So if you see the seventh chapter, he explained what are the energies that come from him. Here in the chapter 9, he is explaining what is the relationship of his relationship with the energies that he is clarifying. So it's very clear they are all coming from him. So as soon as we say the energies are coming from him, then there are different theories that come into picture. So is Krishna diminished after the energies came out of him? Like that's all right. If you had like a pound of strawberries, and if you picked out few strawberries, then the weight is going to go down. So if something is producing, so that some transformation is happening in the source also. But Krishna is saying, he is such a source that he is called as absolute truth. That there is this Vedic aphorism which says Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. That even after giving out, the supreme truth is such an absolute truth, a complete whole, complete truth, that even after producing complete entities like the material universes, still the absolute truth remains the same. He is not affected. Om Purnamada Purnamidam. The world is also Purnam in one sense, is complete in its own way, and the absolute truth is also complete. And even after giving out so many complete entities like these material universes, the supreme absolute truth remains complete. So that is his nature. So that's what Krishna is going to explain in this chapter between verses 4 and 10. And then Krishna will also explain about how different kinds of people approach him. Like what are the ways in which uh, like different kind of people understand Krishna in different ways, that he will discuss from verses 11 to 19. And in verses 20 to 20 onwards, he will speak about the difference between demigod worship and bhakti yoga, and specifically ending the chapter with the glories of devotion service or bhakti yoga. Because if you know, the central chapters 6 are on bhakti yoga. So he straight focuses on the glories of bhakti yoga in chapter 9. So since we didn't have the slides, so for our own benefit, so I'll just repeat this whole thing, that I have an older presentation that I could share. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So here in the chapter 7, Krishna spoke about the uh, more confidential knowledge. So anybody knows what are the three levels of confidential knowledge in the Gita? Have you ever already heard that? The three levels of confidential knowledge in the Gita.
Oh, I think you mentioned it in one of the classes before. One is that we are not the body, we're the soul.
Hmm.
Um, the second is related to Ishvara.
Okay, that's right.
I don't exactly remember the exact wording. And then third one, I don't think it was even mentioned
Okay,
like in that conversation.
okay. So thank you, Pranika. That's right. Like the confidential knowledge is the knowledge of the soul, which is explained in chapter 2. So that is kind of a confidential knowledge, even though everybody seem to understand or seem to know by intuition, still it is considered confidential knowledge because it is also not very easy to realize. Sorry, I have so many. I have so many notifications on my screen. I'm not able to see. Okay, I was speaking about like how the soul, the knowledge about the soul is actually confidential. That is explained in chapter 2. Even though many people, like especially in India, if you go, many people say, oh yeah, we know we are not this body, we are spirit soul. It's kind of considered a very common sense knowledge. However, it is also not very common in the sense of realizing it. And the more confidential knowledge is about, okay, now we know about ourselves, so we want to know about God. So God, like a lot of confusion is there. Is God a person? Is God an energy? Is he like everything? That kind of a confusion is there. That's why Krishna explains about the nature of the absolute truth in chapter 7, that yes, the absolute truth is a person, but also has his energies. Like he is also like has his impersonal aspect and personal aspect. So that knowledge is considered more confidential. And the most confidential is that supreme absolute truth loves us, and we also have the opportunity to love him. So that is considered as the most confidential knowledge, which will be discussed in the chapter 9. So chapter 2 discusses confidential knowledge, chapter 7 discusses more confidential knowledge, and chapter 9 discusses most confidential knowledge. So since we already discussed chapter 7, in which Krishna spoke about his energies. If you remember chapter 7, Krishna said, I'm the taste of the water, or like I'm the light of the sun. And in this way, he explained so many reasons. Bijamam sarvabhutanam. Like in this way, he explained all that in chapter 7. Rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi sasishuryayo pranava sarva vedeshu shabdaha ke paurusham rushu. So he explained all these various energies of him and how we can see him in this world, and that is considered more confidential. And then chapter 8 was pretty much like a tangent, that Arjuna had some questions, so Krishna answered those questions, and used those questions to emphasize the importance of bhakti yoga. And in one of the verses in the Bhakti Yoga, chapter 8, he uses a word called as Ananya. If I'm right, it is the verse 22. Yeah. Purushasa parapartha bhaktya labhyastu ananyaya yasyantastani bhutani yena sarvam idam tatam. So he says bhaktya labhyastu ananyaya, but the one person can actually achieve me. It not necessarily only a yogi can achieve me through this Ashtanga yoga process. Even others can achieve, especially bhaktya to ananyaya labhya, means whoever is like Ananya, whoever is like kind of undeviated in their devotion service to me through devotion bhaktiya, they can very easily achieve me. Labhyastu Ananya. Yasyantastani bhutani. Even though I'm present everywhere, and then everything is coming from me, still through devotion service, it is much more easier to achieve me. So what is that Ananya? Ananya means undivided. So how do one practice that level of devotion service? What is called as Ananya Bhakti, or what is called as unalloyed devotion? That is being explained in this chapter 9. Because he just mentioned that, yeah, it's very easy to achieve me through unalloyed devotion, but what is that unalloyed devotion? How does one practice that? That is being discussed in this chapter 9. Any thoughts, questions at this point until here? Anything you want to clarify? Okay. So I'm just repeating the connection between chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9. So in chapter 7, Krishna spoke about his more confidential knowledge. And then in chapter 8, he explained the questions of Arjuna, and specifically, actually, he spoke about the superiority of bhakti over Ashtanga yoga process. And then he also mentioned that how it is easy to achieve him through unalloyed devotion. So in this chapter, he is going to explain how to become such a devotee, and the specific knowledge required for performing that most confidential yoga. So because he says bhakti is the best form of yoga in 8.28. So in chapter 9, he is going to supply the specific knowledge required for performing that most confidential yoga. And chapter, as I had already explained, chapter 7 and 9 are virtually identical. And chapter 8 is more of an tangential conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, because he uses chapter 8 to clear up some important points before continuing on the same discussion on bhakti. So between chapter and 7 and 9, if you take and compare, they'll have a kind of a structure similarly, though the points emphasized are different. So I wanted to do one thing this time differently. So if do you all have access to a Bhagavad Gita? Yeah.
I do, yes.
Okay. So if you have, so then please carry it, and like we can go through the verse translations and see a flow in the chapter, and then next week we can take on how, like, in detail all of those things. Make sense? Or I can actually put the verse translations here. This one. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the most confidential knowledge, chapter 9. So Krishna says, like, "O Arjuna, so you are never envious of me. So I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of miseries of material existence." Because in the beginning only he is saying what is the qualification, because the personal aspect of God is not very easy for many people to accept, because it kind of throws many feelings out. It's very easy for a lot of people to accept an impersonal God, but it becomes very difficult to accept a personal God, because personal God means then you need to actually surrender. So accountability comes into picture. So that is why it's not very easy. So a lot of people may have that kind of a, why I should bow down to this person, that kind of a feeling. So that's why Krishna is saying, you're never envious of me. That's one of the important qualifications to understand and explore bhakti. At least being open to that idea of a personal God. Yes, Purva?
Um, Prabhuji, but in India we have so many deities. Like in temples, we always have idols, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So why would it be difficult for people to identify God with a form? Rather, for me, I mean, if you tell me to just imagine or to devote myself to some abstract energy, that will be more difficult, because towards whom do I direct my whatever my prayers are, or what? So how is that possible?
Because culturally, since you're seeing that in India, but the rest of the world is, that's not very common. And also even in India, people may just go around to temple culturally and then they may worship. Just ask them to surrender to the deity as the absolute or something. So then even in India, impersonalism is a very strong feature. Like if you see the Advaita Sampradaya, they are all completely impersonalist. So they may use deities, but their understanding of the absolute truth is that the absolute truth is impersonal, and Brahman is impersonal. It's all energy taking form temporarily as deities, and eventually we one when you realize you are also that Brahman. So all these things go on. Actually, this is very predominant than what it seems on the surface. That there is deity worship and there is more personal worship and all that on the surface. But if you scratch the surface, most people will turn out to be like impersonalists.
Okay, I did not know this. Well, I'll experiment. I'll ask people around and see what their opinion is.
Yeah, a lot of people will believe that yeah, this yeah, all of these gods are all like coming from Brahman, and Brahman is impersonal. That kind of understanding is very prevalent on the like is like kind of also there. That understanding is also there in the society. And in the West, it's very uncommon to have deities, so there also the absolute truth is considered as impersonal. Yeah, it's a kind of like the Abrahamic religions. They also worship God like one supreme, but it's not very. The idea is not very clear. Who's that one supreme, and is he having a form or not? That those things are a little bit confusing there also. So it's not very common to see one supreme. Even that is kind of rare. And even if you see, to say that or to understand that that one supreme has a person, is a person, and has a form and has a place, his own abode, and he has his own pastimes, and I need to surrender to him, that concept is not very easy. It'll kind of bring out a lot of emotions for people. Why that one? Why should I surrender to that one person? Have you seen? And all kinds of things will come up. So that's why Krishna is saying, okay, you're not envious of me, like in this. That's one of the important aspects of devotional service. We need to be open to that idea, even if we don't have full faith. That is different. But to vehemently oppose, like, God can never be a person, and I don't need to surrender. I am also God. So these kind of opinions are a strong block for practicing bhakti. Yes, Varnika.
I just wanted to add, like, I mean, it's not like Krishna is telling us to accept him as God without any basis. Like, he gives reasons,
Yeah.
right? And he even asks us and tells us to question. So that is also not wrong,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
questioning is not wrong. So I'm saying, like, being curious is being open and curious is okay. Having doubts is fine. But like having come to a conclusion that God cannot be a person, and that kind of a, if somebody is like kind of convinced, then it becomes very difficult to take to the process of bhakti. Does it make sense, Parnika?
yep, good, all good.
So now in the second verse, he's saying like this knowledge is the king of education, because now he's going to explain that knowledge. He spoke about that glories of that yoga in chapter 8. So he's going to speak about that now. So he's before that he's advertising what he is going to speak, how great it is. So to actually to make us understand the importance of the knowledge that he is trying to give, he says this is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. That's why it's called as most confidential knowledge. It is the purest of knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. So these are the qualities of bhakti. It gives a direct perception of the self by realization. So as we chant, as we engage in the process of devotional service, we have a direct understanding of our own selves and the Supreme Lord. And it says it is the perfection of religion. It's not that other things are not religion, but it is considered the perfection of religion. And it is everlasting and it is joyfully performed. It's not temporary. Today I worship and then I become liberated, so I don't need God because I also become God. No, it's not like that. Bhakti is a process, everlasting process, and it is joyfully performed. And he says, those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me. Therefore, return to the path of birth and death in this material world. So again, this relationship between faith and devotional or spiritual knowledge is again emphasized in this section, because if you go to a college, if you study, if you kind of memorize and then reproduce in the papers, and then you will pass the exam. So their character is not a very important aspect, or is not considered into the grades while grading. As long as you can reproduce something on the paper or in experiments, come up with theories and research and all that, so then you're good. The character is like kind of not emphasized. But Krishna is saying in the spiritual knowledge, character is very much important. It's the basis on which devotional service actually evolves. So that is why he's saying it is very important to have that faith in the process of devotional service. And with that faith comes character. And with that character, knowledge becomes much more easily revealed in devotional service. So that's why faith and knowledge have a very strong connection in spiritual knowledge. Yes, Purva?
Prabhuji, the souls that reach Golok Vrindavan also render their service to Krishna, isn't it? The bhakti yoga. So, but still they sometimes want to return back to the this world, and so Krishna allows them. But my question is, why isn't he strict with them? Like, I understand that he has given them liberty, but like Indian parents, when Indian parents say no, no means no, that's the end of the discussion. And so then, if he knows that life here is so hellish, then why does he allow them to, fulfill their desires? Even if there is so much liberty, why is he not like an Indian parent?
Like, again, as I said, it's not that simple, but still assuming the case that as you're explaining, love cannot be forced.
Yes, but we can, I don't know how to say this, but like
If somebody is
when
curious,
when a
they want to,
child wants to do when a child wants to do something stupid and the parents just say no means no,
no.
um,
But if the child
and
like
then
kind of really wants to do, still will go ahead and do. What after a point, the parents
it's
won't be able to say.
it's true.
As long as you obey, then your parents' words actually, uh, like kind of hold something. The moment you think, oh no, I don't care. Like whatever you say, I'll go on to do what I want to do. Still, your parents also cannot do anything after a point, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, thank you. So here, the first three verses spoke about like just the knowledge aspect, that what is the qualification and disqualification. From verses 4 to 10, Krishna will speak about uh, the kind of what you say, his relationship with the material world. How is his relationship? Even though everything is coming from him, what is his relationship with this material energy? So he says, in my unmanifested form, I'm everywhere. I'm perverted everywhere. All beings are in me, but I'm not in them. So he's kind of saying, yeah, everything that exists in me and I exist in them. At the same time, I also don't exist. So he contradicts between verse 4 and 5. If you see, he exactly says opposite things in verse 4 and 5. Says, in my unmanifested form, I am pervaded in this universe. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. And yet, everything that is created does not rest in me. He just said, all beings are in me in the previous verse. And now he is saying, yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer and although I am everywhere, I am not part of this cosmic manifestation. For myself is the very source of creation. So Krishna is speaking about the impersonal and the personal form both here. So, by me in my unmanifested form, that means the impersonal form through Brahman energy, he is all pervading and everything is existing in that Brahman energy. But when he says, I am not in them, he is specifically speaking about his personal form. As Krishna, as a person, he is not existing in them. And the things are not personally existing on him because he is in his own Goloka Vrindavan, engaging in his pastime as a person separately. So although he is the maintainer of all living entities and he is everywhere through his impersonal energy, he is not part of the material manifestation because he is the source of creation. He is outside this whole material creation, existing in his own abode. So these verses 4 and 5, they emphasize this philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference. Krishna is one with the material creation and different from the material creation. Krishna exists within the material creation and Krishna also exists without, like outside the material creation. Did I clarify things? Okay. So the same way, we will see in detail the rest of this. So he explains like how one needs to understand that. So he speaks about that everything comes from him and still he is separate. So I'm ever detached from all these material activities. So he's not affected by all the changes that is happening in the material world. Rather, the material energy is working under his direction, he says. Maya adhyakshena prakritihi suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagat viparivarte. So all energies, like especially the material energy, is working under his direction. Maya adhyakshena prakriti. So, okay, somebody may question, okay, if everything comes from him and if everything comes from you, Krishna, and you are different and one with this whole thing and everything is working under your direction, why does actually people like does not like care about you, like does not actually accept you? He says, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme lord of all that. So he also says that just because I appear in a human form, people think uh, or their forms are similar to the original form of Krishna, the human beings think, oh, he is also one among one like them. He is also like themselves, and they don't care for his transcendental nature. And then he says, those who are thus bewildered by and attracted by demonic and atheistic views due to their deluded condition, they may do so many things, but if because they don't accept the Supreme Lord, all their efforts for liberation or karma or jnana, all those things actually gets defeated because of their not accepting the supremacy of the personal form of the Lord. So, and he is also saying like, however, those who are who is a Mahatma, he explains. These are Duratmas, he says. Mahatma is one who actually takes shelter of the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. And what do? They chant his glories always. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantasya vrata namasyantasya mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. So always chanting his glories and endeavoring with determination, bowing down before me. So in this way, this is how they engage. Those people in explained in chapter 13, this is what they do in their activities are explained in chapter 14. And in chapter 15, Krishna is speaking, okay, not everybody accepts you. Does that mean that nobody is like, there are no other ways to accept you? No, Krishna says, oh, there are other ways of accepting me also. That there are other people who approach me in different ways. Who are they? There are some people who approach Krishna through the process of knowledge. There are some who actually worship him through the form of universal form and worship him, the Supreme Lord, as one without a second, like as so. In this way, there are many people they approach Krishna in many ways. So he's going to explain all of that, different ways of approaching Krishna. So there are people who approach him through the fire sacrifice. He says, yeah, they approach me through the fire sacrifice, and I am everything. I am the ritual, I am the sacrifice, I am the things that they offer into the fire. I am the fire, I am the butter, I am the offering. So in that way, he also says, okay, this way also people through karma kanda also approach me. And in this way, he will explain the whole thing. We will see the next week in detail. So from there until verses 20, he speaks about the different ways in which people approach him. And especially he starts focusing on the demigod worship, that how people, those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith, actually worship only me, but they do so in a wrong way. He says all the demigod worship ultimately is going to the Supreme Lord, but it is doing through an indirect way. So that's why he's saying if they worship demigods, they will take birth in the planet of the demigods. If someone worship the ancestors, they go where the ancestors are. Someone worship ghosts and spirits, say then they take birth along with such beings. But those who worship Krishna, so they come live with Krishna. So that's why he says it's very important to understand that not all kinds of worship are all same. They all yield different results. So that he concludes, and then he's in the last five or like from verses 26 until 34, he specifically speaks about the glories of devotional service. He says it's not very easy to flaw. Somebody may say, oh, like, okay, then how do I perform that devotion to you? How do I worship you? He says, no, it's not about what you give me. If one offers me with love and devotion, even if they offer a leaf, even if they offer a flower, fruit, or water, I'll accept it. It's not about what they are offering, it's about the love and devotion. And he says, if you can do that, at least whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, whatever you do it as an offering to me. So, and in this way, you'll be freed from the bondage of work and eventually come to Krishna. So, and he says, oh, is it not partiality that you favor your devotees? He says, I don't envy anyone. I'm not partial to anyone. I'm equal to all. But if somebody lovingly approaches me and offers me something, I need to reciprocate with them. He says it is basically reciprocity. It's not partiality. And anyone is open to actually come and reciprocate with me. So in that sense, I'm not partial. I'm just reciprocating accordingly, however people come towards me. And in general, I'm not partial. Like I don't envy anyone. I'm equal to everybody. However, if somebody comes with love and wants to have a personal connection with me, so then I consider them my friend. He says like I'm a friend. I'm in me, and I'm also a friend to him. And he says even if that person sometimes apparently performs some some bad, like you say you're devotees, but sometimes we see your devotees also perform some bad things. So then here he says, yeah, they may be actually currently in that stage, but boldly declare, oh Arjuna, my devotees will never perish, because if they continue to ananya, again the word ananya comes into picture, like if that person actually uh, continues devotional service sincerely, whatever misgivings they have, it will go away. And he says anybody can actually practice this devotional service. In the past, different people had different like, even in the society, whatever however it treats people, even the society sees certain people as lower, still those people also can achieve. So he says anyone who takes shelter of me, whoever they may be, even in the social point of view they may have lower positions, still they can also achieve the supreme destination, because the whole emphasis is taking shelter of Krishna. That is the emphasis. Many people put the emphasis on the lower birth, but actually, the emphasis of this verse is in taking shelter. Krishna is saying that not to say these are all lower, but to say that taking shelter, even if the society considers someone as lower, does not matter. And what to speak of people who are have more facilities, like the Brahmanas or the kings and all of these people, they have more facilities. So then, how easily they can actually engage in devotional service and achieve me. So, in short, he is saying, whoever you are, engage your mind and become my devotee and offer obeisances to me and practice this aspects of devotional service, and be completely sure that you will come to me. So he's giving like a guarantee. Okay, you engage in the devotional service, absorb your mind, think of me, become my devotee, and practice the regulations of devotional service. And if you're absorbed in me, whatever you're absorbed in, that's what you get. That's what in Krishna told in the 8th chapter also, at the time of death. Whatever one is absorbed, they go there. So if whole life we practice thinking of Krishna, and if we are absorbed, then surely we will go to Krishna. So again, like just going over this chapter this week, without like going into the details. So let me pull the other section.
Prabhuji, at the end, I have two general questions. They're not related to this chapter, but they're just general.
Can you see the screen now? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is like, I'm just going to go through quickly the chapter 9, and then we will have the questions. So it is most confidential knowledge. It is Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga. And of course, there are no questions here asked by Arjuna. It's straight Krishna is going to continue the discussion that they had earlier. He's just going to go begin the discussion on his own. And this is kind of the breakup of the chapter, where Krishna speaks about the knowledge that he's going to speak in the first 3 verses. Then he speaks about his relationship with the material world. And verses 11 to 19, there are different ways that people understand Krishna. And he speaks about the comparison between bhakti and demigod worship. And at the end, he speaks about the glories of devotional service. So as we discussed, there is confidential, there is more confidential, and most confidential knowledge. So we just kind of went through this. First 3 verses spoke about knowledge about Krishna and then his relationship with the material world. Here, understanding of Krishna in different ways. What are those different ways? One is the people understanding that Krishna's body to be material. That's a wrong understanding. And there are 13 and 14 people who approach Krishna or understand Krishna through the aspect of pure devotion. And then there are 3 types of worshippers. In the 15 he spoke about, that is, that people who worship him as impersonal energy, or people who worship him as universal form and all of that. And Krishna is speaking about the result of demigod worship and result of worshipping Krishna. That comparison he is doing between verses 20 and 25, literally 26, 27, 28 again speaks about glories of devotional service. And towards the end, he speaks, even if the most fallen, the bhakti can actually elevate. So that is the glories of devotional service. It's approachable and accessible to everyone, even if they are uh, like by their own character, even if they are like not perfect, or in social understanding, or is in economical understanding, whatever it's happening in the society externally, based on their bodily distinctions, if even if they are considered lower, those things does not actually uh, limit anyone from practicing bhakti or in realizing Krishna. So that's the whole crux. The world may have at different points of times different kinds of like partialities or problems. Like sometimes it can be made based on race, sometimes it can be based on gender, sometimes it can be based on birth, and so many kind of discrimination can happen in the society. But those things does not affect their ability or qualification to practice bhakti. Bhakti is above all of these social institutions. It's available to everybody. Chakresh, then Purva.
So you talked about uh, confidential, more confidential, and most confidential in chapters 2, 7, and 9, right?
Yeah.
So what are points in each? What is one point in each of them that we can like talk to outside people?
Means what is those confidential knowledge, or the more confidential knowledge, or the most confidential knowledge that is discussed in those chapters? Is that your question?
Yeah, what is one point in both in each of them? One point.
Chapters. Okay. So chapter 2, it is the knowledge of the soul, that you're not this body, your spirit soul. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
In chapter 7, it is all the matter and the spirit comes from Krishna. Like be it earth, water, fire, air, ether, or the souls, we all come from Krishna. And the matter is inferior energy, and the soul is a superior energy. And they both, their source is in the supreme. Make sense?
And then what's like the most important point
And
in
the most
chapter 9?
confidential knowledge is, okay, now you know who you are not, and what is your relationship with Krishna. He is the source. But now, how do you reconnect, reawaken that relationship? That is a process of bhakti. So, the most confidential knowledge is devotional service. How to establish that connection with Krishna or the Supreme.
Thank you, Babaji.
Okay. Thank you for asking the question. Yeah, Purva, you have something before we close?
Yes, so just a general question. In the nine forms of devotion services, chanting is mentioned, but Japamala is not mentioned. Like, so what is the difference and importance of just chanting, simple chanting, and chanting on the Japamala? I know what is the importance of 108, 16, and 64. But we can count that in different ways also. But what is the significance of counting those numbers only on a Japmala and not some other random thing?
Basically it's an aid to count. So if you have some other ways to count, you can, but it's kind of considered easier way to keep a track of the counting, right? People use counters. People, you can count in your fingers also. You can go through and then you can keep the numbers of rounds in this hand and you can count. But it's a lot of mental gymnastics to remember so much. So with the beads it becomes much easier. You go through one bead and it's very clear that you have completed. It's more of a aid tool, which makes your
Okay.
process of keeping count very easy.
And then would there be any difference between just simple chanting throughout the day and specifically chanting 16 or 64 rounds on the
So the
Japmala?
idea of japa is basically y- when you're told, when your mind is told, this is the only thing that you're supposed to focus and just focus on the mantra. Even then, it is very difficult. The mind will go all over the place. So the whole training is for the mind to be present with the holy name. It's like taking a medicine. It's like concentrated effort. You're taking the medicine, and it can, once you chant your actual rounds, and then throughout the day as a background it can go on. but once in a while, but the training for the mind is to exclusively focus. Japa is to train the mind to exclusively focus on the sound. Kirtan is more of an emotional connection. Japa is more of a mental training and cleansing of the thing. So both are holy name, but they both have different effects. So Kirtan gives the emotional connection more, and it can help your Japa. Japa can help your Kirtan. They both can help each other, and they need to be focused. And after you do it for a certain amount of time, then it can overflow into the other parts of your day. So if you say always, I want to do this always, most people will end up doing it never, will never end up doing it, because always is like, the measure of always is very difficult. Our minds are so distracted. We will get into something and we'll completely forget to chant in the background or anything. So the idea is exclusively take out some time where you are like, it's like you do work all day, but your muscles won't develop just by that. You have to go to gym and lift weight, then the muscles actually develop. The same for mind also. So that exclusive time is a time like this, how you go to gym. You're stretching it in a certain way because there, so that it becomes actually strong. For the mind, the muscle is focus. The exercises actually focus. The more you focus, the mind becomes more strong. The more you're all over the place, the mind feels like you feel lost after a day. That's why when we watch like YouTube or Instagram, you keep swiping for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. At the end, you will never feel very happy or fulfilled or accomplished, because the mind constantly kept moving from this to thing to another thing. It did not focus on one thing uh, with with its own volition. Like, you don't even know what is the next shots that's going to come up. It's just like taking as it comes. But mind means having a, what do you call, like a purposeful focus. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. We choose. Okay, so this is the mantra I'm going to meditate on for this much time. So then the mind actually benefits from that kind of a focus. And the more you focus, the mind is much more healthy. The more we are distracted, the mind is that much unhealthy. Did I answer?
Okay, thank you. Yes, it was perfect.
Chakresh, is that the old hand, new hand?
Wait, Prabhuji, what? So, what's so sacred about the number 108?
Okay. There are many, many explanations that how the whole universe, if you see, it's all like kind of, it all works on a certain level of max. So, Purva, you want to say, you said you have some understanding of the numbers.
It's uh, it's about the planets, and there are like 9 planets, and then there uh, the math. Wait, my math is very poor. Nine times, nine times,
12.
nine times some number comes to 108.
12.
So so yes, uh, that's it. 9 planets.
Okay. So there are many other understandings. Krishna has 108 gopis, and why this, and it has connection with the bodily energy chakras also. There are prominent chakras, and then there are like less prominent chakras. Together, they all count to 108. So in this way, there are so many connections with us. How the universe is created. It's because our body is a microcosm and the universe is a macrocosm. So there are correlations with all of these things. So when the chanting is vibrated, so then it opens up all those energies, and also it kind of opens the mind, and then you feel like kind of um, more in alignment with the macrocosm, which is the universal energy. In that, there are so many understandings. It basically, the main purpose is not the numbers. The main purpose is actually focus of the mind. So the act of
Basically,
focusing, the focusing on the mind is the purpose. 108 has so many reasons. Like Krishna has 108 gopis, and it's like very traditional. There are like so many Upanishads, which is the primary ones are considered 108 Upanishads like that. So 108 has many levels of significance. I can post. I'm very poor in remembering these kind of facts. but I do know where it is. I had noted down. I can share it in the WhatsApp group.
Thank you, Guruji.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. So we will see in the coming week with our usual presentation. We will go through the other details of the chapter 9. So basically, it is the chapter 9 is going to speak about the importance of devotion service or bhakti. So that's the main topic, and we'll explore it in the next week. Probably we'll complete the whole chapter because we had like a overview this week. So next week we can go in detail and complete it. Maybe
Prabhuji, I have
part
one
of
more
one.
question.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, but I can take it next week if it's late for you. No problem.
No, no, no. You can go on.
Okay, so I recently read that one of the sure short ways to please Krishna is to render service to your spiritual master, which
Mm-hmm.
for me it can be you. So I would like to know what can I do for you? Like what are all the things that I can do for you?
Uh, I'm just sharing some knowledge. You may have to find someone locally for you to connect with. You go to Pune, NBCC, which any places?
The thing is that the all the ISKCON centers are very far from my home.
Okay.
They are not in the center. So, but yes, sometimes I mean at least once in a month I go to at least
You
one center.
do you have any place which is like kind of closer to you, like any community which is having weekly programs, home programs or something closer to you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Usually in India those things happen. Like if you
But even in ISKCON, like whenever I go to, no matter which center, the people over there, so everyone is so serious. Like you go to try approach them, and they are always in a crowd themselves, and they're always running from one office to other. They don't really pause for you, or you can't speak to them, or and and
kind of in a temple atmosphere, it may give that kind of a feeling. The very reason so many people are there is because they got those personal attention. It's just you have to cast them in the right place. Home programs are places where people tend to give more attention and they know you in person, because when you go to a place with 3,000 people for the Sunday feast, you surely will feel lost. But if you go to a home program which has like 30, 40 people, then you will get to know more people of your age and also people who can know you in person and kind of guide you. So let me check with someone from the Pune who can actually let me know the resources there. Which area do you live?
I live in Bowdhan.
Okay, so
I'll type it.
text me that
Oh, okay.
personally. So then
I'm typing.
I'll see if who has a home sangha near you, so then you can go connect with them and be taken care of.
But another thing that like these everyone who is in ISKCON, they might speak in Hindi and Marathi, which I understand perfectly, but their language is so formal and archaic that it's so like I mean,
No,
imagine you
Pune,
speaking
they should be
in
speaking like
English.
there will be English in ISKCON, believe me.
But yes, there is, but it's very less. I mean, I don't have a problem with Marathi or Hindi. It's just the form of that language. Very like imagine you speaking in 19th century English. It's English, but it's gone. It's we don't understand that, or we don't speak that. Although we understand what is thou, thee, and all of that, but
I understand, like the translations are a little bit more kind of formal, but people when they
normally also when you speak like
yeah,
normal.
I'm pretty sure like there are programs and speakers in Pune also, because I know the congregation, how they take care of people and how dynamic they are. So surely there are much more qualified people there. So I'll find out who lives closer to you, or what is the nearest congregation for you, like home sanghas, smaller groups that you can connect with. I'll check if there are any ladies and like that. So I'll put you in touch with. So you share which place you stay. I'll find out
Thank
some.
you. I'll just type it here 1 minute. There.
Okay, Bob. Okay, so I'll just check and let you know.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Take care. Thank you everyone for joining on a Saturday morning. Thank you for your time and energy. I'll come better prepared next time with the slides on for this chapter, and also post the recordings. So, thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mahida and Devi.
Thank you, Guruji.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
Sundaranand Prabhu.
Thank you,
It-
Thank
Prabhu.
you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare
Hare Bol, Shyam and Yogeshwari Mataji, Amrit Kishori. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Anand,
Hare
you're back.
Krishna.
You're back. Is Mataji is also back? Hare- Oh, Prabhu left.